Alright, so numbnuts acts like, or dumb bitch, or whatever he is, or she is. They act like people aren't real in the world, that nobody ever heard of rape on talk shows, or things like that before. So we're going to look up some Phil Donahue shows. Okay. This is March 2010, but Phil Donahue talks about the sex scandal. Oh, Bill Donahue, I'm sorry.
Well, lawyers for victims of the Catholic Church may sue the Vatican for access to material they say may shed light on the dialogue between Rome and American bishops as well, and to see if there was any official hush policy. Meanwhile, Pope Benedict...
And see, blessed are ye when you're persecuted for doing the right thing. All right. Here's one on date rape. All right. 1990. All right.
The rape list actually had been around for a long time. I can't tell you when it officially started because it was never a premeditated, organized, let's write on bathroom walls kind of thing.
Here is our recreation of what you might find on the wall of the women's rooms of Brown University. The actual name of the guy. You see this up close here? Actual name of the guy written on the stall wall is a rapist. Nothing can get him off campus. Rich white boys can do whatever they want.
I was involved in an incident my sophomore year, and I called the police and I filed a report, and I also filed a complaint with Dean Inman, who at that time was Dean of Students. Yes, while there are some supportive networks that are set up around campus, women who wanted to bring their cases through have had to deal with stuff like that being said to them. This case can be boiled down to bad chemistry. So you're the one with the little romance going sour to a rape survivor. People who have been drinking put themselves in a dangerous situation because their inhibitions break down, and rape is certainly not a matter of a woman's inhibitions just breaking down.
Who said that?
That was the dean.
So towards the end of my sophomore year, I went to a seminar on what Brown is doing about sexual harassment and assault, and I thought, I've got to hear this. I mean, what a joke, because I've been dealing with it all year, trying to get something done through the system. At this seminar with a number of women who had gone through similar things, I met Jen David and Lisa Billowitz and Kristen Langan.
But see, men of power will rape a man or a woman sometimes, knowing they can't really report it, right? That's a problem too.
A gentleman here said, reporting to bathroom walls, people are reporting to the proper authorities and being turned away. And I think that's very important. We have to stress that the bathroom walls are a last resort.
There's also a drug and sex scandal in 1992 with WWF. Right?
Entertainment, now stepping forward, a lot of men saying that there's a good deal of gay sex abuse underway
in the world of wrestling, and everybody all these years has been scared to step forward. Now come forward a number of people to say, because I wouldn't have sex with another guy in the game, I couldn't get promoted, including three, honestly, some. Well, listen, while you're laughing, this has been a not-so-funny issue for women. Now we have a casting couch, essentially, alleged, in the wrestling game, and some guys are saying, I lost my job because I wouldn't do this to this guy who was a higher, more powerful than me on the ladder. And before you think this is trivial, first of all, let's understand that a couple of these charges involve kids, 14 years old, juveniles. You go to jail for a long time if you're involved with sex of any kind with a juvenile. One more point. The Wrestling Federation, you know how you tee-hee, ha-ha, what a joke, hoo-hoo, $1.7 billion in 1990. That's more revenue that has been generated by the NFL. So while you're laughing, somebody is whistling all the way to the bank. We have three people who used to be in the wrestling game who are going to tell you that they indeed encountered people who wanted sexual favors, and they were professionally penalized when they said no. And if you think the WWF is hiding behind lawyers, here is the head of that organization, who has accepted, incidentally, recently, resignations from two executives who stand accused of gay sexual harassment. He'll have a prepared statement. First, let's get the charges underway here. Gentlemen, Murray Hodgson, hired by Vince McMahon, here on my left for the TV job. You were the commentator. And then fired 2 months later. What happened? Can you specifically, and without taking us around the world, tell us, what is it that happened to you?
I wouldn't sleep with the vice president of operations, so they fired me.
Is the vice president of operations one of those who resigned?
Yes, he is.
And do you want to name him?
I don't think that'd be necessary.
What did you announce? Did you do any color for any telecasts?
Yes.
About how long did you do the color?
Oh, I started for about a month. They hired me for a 2-year deal, and it just went right out the window when I decided that I didn't want to sleep with the vice president.
Was there any touching? Was there any kind of vulgar locker room activity? We're trying to be specific here, Murray, as a court of law would oblige any person to be of any gender.
It was a little worse than that. He blatantly threatened my job security.
He didn't say sleep with me, did he? Is that the way men talk?
I don't think this is the proper forum to...
I agree with you, and I appreciate very much you bringing a certain amount of decorum to this. This is a daytime television show, and we don't want to draw any dirty pictures. Did it happen more than once?
No.
Just once?
Yeah.
And then how long after you said no were you dismissed?
A couple of weeks.
Barry Orton. Here's Barry O, the former professional wrestler, who you think you lost your job with the WWF after refusing similarly.
Actually, no, I've never actually said that. Okay, that's something that the media has come out, and with the stories that I've given, they have kind of turned it around to where I've said that. I've never said that. However, I had encounters with two of the gentlemen that have resigned since the allegations began. And these incidents, of course, happened in 1978, which is a long time ago. However, the impact and the gravity of the situations are very severe. And, you know, if they were behaving that way then, and, you know, they would be behaving that way now, I would expect.
No laugh here. You accused that executive grabbing your crotch, legs, and chest and wouldn't stop.
Yeah, well, I was in between the two of them in the back seat of the car on a trip.
You were in the center.
Right.
And you thought it to be a place where a junior guy has to sit.
Pretty much,
This was the early 80s?
This was 1978.
78.
Right.
So this is before the billion-dollar wrestling mania, pay TV, Hulk Hogan era. And you had to drive. You know, you guys weren't walking in money then.
Right. And everyone, you know, the more people in the car, the better, because everyone would split the expenses and keep their car.
And then don't you saying that you got out of the car and said, not me? And
Oh yeah, you know, went on for several minutes. I finally demanded that the car be. At first, I thought it was kind of funny that they were joking, but then it became, you know, harassment.
Right. Barry, it would be hard for a jury to feel a whole lot of sympathy for a guy of your size. You know what I mean? A helpless woman you're not. How old were you when this transpired?
19 years old. Probably about 35 pounds lighter.
And also probably not altogether together in your head, like a lot of 19-year-olds. I don't know.
No, absolutely not. You know, and I was trying to be accepted into the business.
Yeah.
I was young, I was green.
And you got the big dream ahead of you. Maybe you're going to be the big guy. And there was money if you got on the main card.
Yeah.
So you're following your dream, and I suppose you want us to know, among other things, that when a couple of guys in the game, executive types, come on to you like that, and you're 19 years old, you may be a little hesitant to tee them off.
Of course. You know, and so I endured it for as long as I could until it became, I started feeling suffocated or, and I couldn't take it anymore.
Tom Hankins, you're likewise a pro wrestler. You, what's your story, Tom?
Well, I'm a former pro wrestler. I got out of the business about 4 years ago, but back in 1985 in Los Angeles, California, at the University Hilton Hotel, after the WWF had run a card at the sports arena, I was sitting at a bar with, I guess, can I name these people? Sure. With Pat Patterson, Andre the Giant, Dr. Jerry Graham, and Mike LaBelle. He was a Los Angeles promoter at the time, or a former promoter in Los Angeles.
Right.
And we sat there drinking maybe for an hour or so. I was talking to Pat. I'd known Pat for maybe 6 months.
So this is
I knew he was
just
gay,
FYI.
but, didn't matter to me if he was gay or not. And
Now, they can't hopefully do that anymore, right? But this was back in 92, right? When this was starting to come out, right? Now, I'm a disabled veteran, so I have no interest in going out to wrestling, right? But it's part of the point, right? Here's one about marital rape. And
No, a husband cannot. Yes, a husband can. Are you surprised?
This is 1982, right?
People out here think that it shouldn't be a legal thing about raping your wife. You're married, and that's that, and how do you prove it anyway?
Well, if you say, can a husband rape his wife, it's such a funny way of putting it. It's almost like, can he get it up? It's that gross. What you mean is, can he be prosecuted for raping his wife? Should he be prosecutable for raping his wife? And the answer is yes, and I think that the audience knew what you meant, I guess.
Sure. Now, some think no, that he shouldn't be a candidate for prosecution. And you're here to say?
That he should be, because if he's not, then she's a lesser person in society.
You share that view, do you? This is Laura X. Incidentally, Miss X is a very, very committed and highly regarded feminist who's done a good deal of research on the whole issue of marital rape, and in fact has developed or founded a national clearinghouse on the issue. There are states in...
Thing is, I can tell when a woman doesn't want sex with me, like Daphne one time, and I was trying to have sex with her and I couldn't even get her up. So don't tell me I'll rape someone, right? I really don't even know how. The weird thing about me is I only respond when a woman responds back, right?
Incidentally, in which it is not a crime, or it is not possible for 39 states where a man cannot be accused of marital rape. She thinks that's a travesty. The last name, X, is your public statement it's a feminist statement in which you, among other things, feel that women should not surrender their own identities just because they're married. Men don't have to.
The idea is that we are legally owned either by our fathers or our husbands, and I'm trying to...
Yeah, that was...
Diana Russell is here. Problem, you're a PhD and author of Rape and Marriage, and in which you say...
the father, like I told you, even
that
if
marital
his
rape
virgin daughter has sex with the man, can still refuse the man
and the result
to marry his daughter, and then he has to pay her a dowry,
in fact,
right?
My study, which was based
and
on
that's so she can marry someone else.
14% had been raped by their husbands. But what's important is that they didn't necessarily see it as rape, and I wonder if that's also true for the audience, whether, they recognized that they had been forced to have sex, but they just couldn't quite bring themselves to use that word. So in fact, we didn't use that word. If we had said, have you ever been raped by your husband, I'm sure the percentage would have been much lower. But the other point is, actually, I think 14% is an underestimate, because many of the women feel they can never refuse. They feel that part of marriage is that they have to consent, whether they wish to or not.
And many men feel that their women cannot refuse.
Absolutely.
And if there's a suggestion of refusal,
well, that's why Paul's trying to suggest. Wait a minute now.
Many women are almost
You're not always
because they
helps
say
as
yes,
your wife
they don't
sometimes.
want to.
Give her a
I
break.
wonder, when more women exercise their right, what will happen?
Why don't
to
y'all
the
pray a
percentages?
little bit?
I
Show her
feel
some
it.
love.
I feel like I need a lot of help.
Take her on a
Yes,
date.
all right.
Treat her
Well,
like
you
a
probably
lady.
don't. You have
Treat her
quite a
like
reputation
a
as an attorney at law.
lady. Got
You've
treated
developed a
like.
number of landmark cases. Your history as an attorney is a very it's a stellar one, and I'm sure you're proud of it. You're a matrimonial attorney. You're president of the New York Criminal Civil Court Bar Association. Your name is Sidney Siller, and you're here to say.
I'm here to say that rape generally is a vulgar and barbaric crime, and has been used by the feminist movement mainly in recent years as a political vehicle. In fact, the last page, or next to the last page of Diana Russell's book, gives us the entire crux of what they are saying.
Yeah,
they are
right.
saying that they want power. They want to equate the rape and marriage issue with individual power of women. Now, I don't understand why they took this issue, except that it is so volatile and so emotional. It's even, in many instances, more emotional than certain homicide cases are. It gets everybody fearsome because most people fear their wives being, at least men do, I think, fear their wives being raped generally by strangers, and certainly many women fear the potential attack coming. Now, if there are some cases of marital rape, it's overblown and out of proportion. 930 women who were paid to give interviews, being interviewed by women.
I also wouldn't get it up for a 4-year-old. Ever.
In the study.
You've already said that you think rape is a barbaric act. Why is it different if a husband does it to
Well,
his wife?
based on your study, you see, you said in your book that it is a media attention need for women to fight the rape issue, the marital rape issue.
That doesn't necessarily deny the virtue of their grievance, though.
No, there is some
I'm not sure why would a nice guy like you spend so much time condemning the idea of a wife being able to legally, first of all, it's going to get you more work. I've never heard a lawyer who would object to that.
Certain kinds of work we don't want.
Why?
You know,
I don't understand what. I'm still not sure, Mr. Siller, what your objection is to this.
He's skating the issue, ain't he? Okay. Shocking details of child sex state rape.
Dr. Reisman refused to go on Donahue unless he would agree to show Kinsey's tables, where the child sex abuse data is presented. Despite knowing about these tables, Donahue repeatedly insisted that no proof existed of child abuse in Kinsey's research. Nevertheless, he did show the data to his audience.
Well, we're going to show.
There.
Now, what is the point?
You
What is
tell
your
me
point?
what is the point. 5 months old. What is it? I can hardly read it. What's next to that? Number of orgasms. Oh, number of orgasms too. Go down to the 4-year-old. You see the 4-year-old there?
17, yeah.
There, bottom one.
Yes.
4-year-old, 26 orgasms in 24 hours. Tell me, Phil. Does a baby sleep? Tell me, Phil. Does a baby sleep? Tell me if this is scientific. A baby sleeps for 8 hours.
You tell me how you get 26 orgasms for 24 hours.
You've got to be able to go on in edgewise.
Just a minute.
Sounds like a guest for the Donahue show.
And you know what Gebhardt said to me? You know what Dr. Gebhardt said? He wrote me a letter, which I wish you had a...
So like I said, this is all commentary and critique of the show, right? See, I get to do it too, because, like I told you, this shit's been going on longer than you fucking think, assholes. And you're just in the dark about it. Now, Phil Donahue was the first daytime talk show ever to really breach some of these topics anyway. Y'all just don't want to deal with it. And you're really being jerk-offs from hell, I know. Worse than your daddy rapist or your mommy rapist, right?
Resort. Sexual assault and sexual harassment,
This is
those
class 99,
kind of offenses were always diverted into a whole other sort of mediation direction.
So this is the women at Brown University
who would meet
fight
with the
for a
students and try and
sexual
mediate
assault
and get them
policy
to
to
apologize
address state
and
rape
move
on
it on.
campus.
And as a result, I think there was a lot of anger slowly building up over a lot of time among female students at Brown that these kind of offenses were treated very differently or, pretty much just swept under the carpet.
Women for years had been writing on the bathroom wall in the Rockefeller Library. And it wasn't really a list. It was more a conversation than a collection of names. It was more of a dialogue. Like, be careful with John Doe. He has trouble with the word no.
Well, first of all, the bathroom walls, I should say, at Brown have always been a source of referral they were always a source of referral to my office, because I would often say to a student, well, how did you find me? Or how did you know to come to talk to me about your eating disorder? And they'd say, oh, I got your name off the bathroom wall.
So this kind of dialogue had been going on, but then the Brown Daily Herald ran a very inflammatory headline saying rape list in Rockefeller Library.
I remember going to a meeting, and I was one of probably the few women at that meeting, and maybe I was even the only woman at the meeting. And there was on the agenda, this item was, the bathroom walls, and this group of male administrators talked for quite a long time about what are we going to do? How do we get...
like I said, one of the guys named Lockheed or Locklear or something like that, he talked about having sex with a girl on the couch who was a minister's daughter. The dad was in the house. She said no, but he kept having sex with her. See, but this is when he was younger too, right? Probably back in when he was around 15, 16, 17, before he became legally viable. But today, he would be in jail for date rape. And that's all I mean about him, right? Now, I'm not trying to get him in trouble.
Operations workers into female bathrooms.
Like I said.
And the university started
only the girl, if there's no
erasing the
statutes
list,
of limitations,
painting over it. Women, in turn, started rewriting the list or copying it down in the
This was a long time ago.
Rewriting it in other bathrooms, so it kind of proliferated.
And I never touched
it. Wasn't just in the Rock.
Now, I would help her go to the bathroom if
library,
during
there was now a list,
1 to 4 nights I stayed with Daphne before I could get a room back on base, right?
Instead of just
If
painting
she
over
came
it
in
in
there to
white,
me,
they started
I know
painting
how
over
to
it
help
in
the
black
child go to the
if they
bathroom
couldn't
or
write.
not.
I remember saying,
Or
well,
get a drink
don't you
of
think
water
we
or
should
something to eat.
talk about
But those are normally
why the women on this campus are feeling that they have to take to the bathroom walls to talk about rape on campus. I think that's really the issue, not how do you get the writing off the bathroom walls, or what do you build new bathrooms with walls you can't write on? I mean, that's not, I think we're missing an important point here.
My point is that if I went in and wrote tomorrow on a bathroom stall, Phil Donahue is a rapist, your name would be around campus in a week, and you would be known as a rapist.
Yeah.
And that's very dangerous. I think that there must be some avenue that we could pursue to...
I only feel a little uncomfortable standing here.
It became an issue of men's rights being violated, men not being given due process. you know, never mind that the underlying situation that caused the list was the fact that women were being violated and being violated for years with nothing going on in terms of stopping it.
And so the Dean of Student Life called and organized a town meeting in List Auditorium to talk about sexual assault on campus. And List probably holds 300 people, and it was packed. And the meeting starts, and Dean Robinson stands up, you know, on stage, and he starts his meeting. And all of a sudden, he's 3 minutes into his talk, and a student in List stood up. One student stood up. Oh, and everybody was wearing red shirts. And he kept talking, not quite sure what to do. And sometimes at Brown, students would stand up at a meeting and then start screaming at you in your face, you know, while you were talking. But they weren't disrupting the meeting. They just stood up one at a time. And then 3 minutes later, another one stood up. It took a while for people to realize what they were doing was every 3 minutes a woman gets raped. And so every 3 minutes, a student in the audience stood up. They stood there silently. Dean Robinson kept talking. It was, you can imagine, rather disconcerting to him. He wasn't sure what was going on with this meeting. And in a very short time, the entire auditorium was standing.
I remember there were lots of students who were really involved in this process. It wasn't just the four of us. I know that there were students, especially if I remember like the Gay and Lesbian Student Association, there were a lot of female students in that group who were very active, who felt that the media wasn't interested at all in hearing from them.
Somehow we kind of became the point people in a way. I think originally the administration wanted us to kind of toe the party line or say that things weren't that bad. And we were like, well, hey, while we have the spotlight, while the media is focused on this, that was the only thing that was giving the university's attention and getting the university to move at all, unfortunately. So we did interviews with the New York Times and Chicago Tribune. Lisa Bilowitz was on the cover of Ms. Magazine, along with some other student activists. And we did Donahue.
I got a call from Vartan Gregorian himself, and I had very little contact with him at that point because I was lower on the food chain, and there were several people in between me and him. But he called and said, I want you to go on Donahue. Yeah, I mean, I certainly also want to at least say that I'm not an official spokesperson for the university. I work at the university. I'm representing the university, but...
You're not a spokesman for the university. Well, everybody's tap dancing pretty fast here.
Before we went out to do the show, we had to sign releases. And the name of the release, we had this big release we had to sign, and the title of the show was Rape, Murder, and Revenge on College Campuses. And we said, well, what's the murder about? They said, well, that's just the name of the show. And we said, but nobody's been murdered. We're not going to sign a release saying the name of the show is Rape, Murder, and Revenge on College Campuses when nobody's been murdered. And so they ended up scratching the murder out, and then we signed the release.
The media has trivialized this, okay, in my opinion. This is a serious topic. This is a very important topic. We don't want to be divided on this topic either. And I think that, unfortunately, when this happens, we set ourselves up for some sort of trivialization or even being used or exploited, and that makes me unhappy.
I'd like to speak to that because I think Brown University has, in the past, trivialized the issue to an incredible degree. If people think writing on the wall is ludicrous, I think it's ludicrous that when a man pleads guilty to rape, the only punishment for him is that he has to write the victim, or I prefer to say survivor, an apology note, or that a note is sent to his football coach. So I think while Brown encourages students to speak out on some issues, they silence them on others.
I saw where the students were coming from. I understood them that they had very legitimate complaints about the way sexual assault was being handled on our campus. It was being handled poorly everywhere. The fact is, it's probably still today handled poorly on many campuses. But we got really good and better than most places fast because of this kind of activism. It really was a wake-up call, and everybody in the administration started to really pay attention because the limelight was on the campus.
Why did it take women resorting to writing on bathroom walls to get the attention of the university? It should never have come to that. But really, it was like the only safe place, you know, if you wanted to warn other women or vent about your own frustration and humiliation trying to go through the system.
After I came, it was soft. She just made me lay there until she got off. Which, as her husband, I did it for her to enjoy. Right? I didn't buy it, but it was.
New Listerine Ready tabs. Chew, swish, ready.
I told you I'm a hopeless romantic. Now, you're only hearing the audio too, not the visual, right? There's a reason for that, right? All right, here's something about Bill Cosby and Sofia Vergara. Sorry.
It's a long-forgotten video of Bill Cosby, and he can't take his eyes off Sofia Vergara.
Men look at you, and they think only of sin.
The date was March 25th, 2003. Cosby was filling in for David Letterman, who was out sick with shingles. At the time, Sofia was 30 years old and virtually unknown in America.
This is my first time in American TV.
It was years before she hit it big on Modern Family. But she already knew how to make an entrance.
Now, what you have on tonight is wonderful. This is wonderful. And when you walked out, many people became attentive.
Now watch as Cosby gets into Sofia's space for what can now be seen as a cringe-worthy moment.
Make me feel young again. Make me feel
But I mean, that's the point. She ain't in the, you know. Okay, something's going wrong there. So he got 3 to 10 years in state prison for assault, right? But like I told you will take advantage of women. And I've heard that my whole life, right? But the point isn't you can do whatever you want to me either. See, the thing about Molly, like I told you before, right? For example, is when we were together the full 2 weeks, right? She came twice, right? Not as far as sexual wise, but she visited me 2 times, right? The first time I initiated a move on her, but she said no, so we stopped, right? The second time I initiated a move on her, it was different, and I let her get on top, and I came in her real quick, right? Well, like I said, within a few months, she's crying rape. And that's what I mean. You can't cry rape when you're on top. So she's not who she's pretending to be, right? So I'm going home and her sitting with a twisted back, right? And I'm like that now. I wasn't like that when it first happened, right? And mom didn't want me to even really contact her anymore, right? But again, I'm just like, what? And that's kind of her problem, right? See, I saw everything as, she wanted it. She knew everything about me, right? Of course. So why would she do that? And then a few months later cry rape, and that made me think she got pregnant or something. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's why I also took her to the Walmart to buy some spermicide, right? And Waffle House to get something to eat, right? Why am I doing that? Well, normal guys just roll over and fall asleep. Right? I didn't do that with her. Mm-hmm. Well, I bought the spermicide, like I told you, because she said she didn't want a baby, right? She didn't say I'm transgender and can't have a baby. And had the sex change, right? She's acting like, okay, she can get pregnant, but her periods are spotty, right? She still has periods, but they're spotty, right? So, like I said, I don't know what the hell she's even talking about, right? I'm assuming she's female or what? Come back. Maybe two, right? Maybe she has an X chromosome, right? Or an X, right? That's usually how it works. Oops, I did it again. Shoot it again. So here's something of an interview with the Now the thing is though, who's raping whom there? Am I raping Molly or is Molly raping me? Kinda gotta ask that too, right? If she knows what I'm looking for, and I'll tell you up front, right? Who's lying there? Molly, right? Who's crying out? Two hearts born to run. Who means the love and one love? Who's crying? till the heartache is over. Now you can say your love will never die. That was a clip of Who's Crying Now by Journey, sung by the original lead singer, Machine impersonating consent, the track on the album, just the vocals, just to teach you how to impersonate Steve Perry at home, which I like the song, which is a critique. That's called covering your ass in case they're doing something wrong and you're not. You're not ready to do. Ooh, nausea, nausea, nausea. Hard to pick, pretty girls. Pretty girls. But I think Zai is a little bit better. But one's 29 and one's 30. But anyway. I still want to ride. Ride the wild. If you want to ride, ride the wild. Here's some chick calling herself Angelic Pussy. On MILF. MILF hookups. You demonic pussy. Great. Sure, you're an angel, baby. That's not judged for me. Chicken that ass. Chicken that ass. And whether she's got on a thong, short or ass. Some chick is eating a banana. Got a banana ready to eat. I don't eat that at this point. What do you fucking do about that? You do that. Screwball about it. Now, there's also a difference between rough sex, consensual sex, and paid for sex, right? And this is an orgy sex party. Mm-hmm. This one has a transgender person having sex with a female. Getting her in the act. That's right. So, getting her top hole without the bottom. I don't think it's hard to tell because I can't tell. It's I don't know if you can get her butt. So it's a gay sex exchange between a gay transgender person getting her in the ass. And that's the point. I'm playing, but like I said, some of y'all going uber sexual and everybody right. The thing is, you can't stop it, right? Don't even try. Don't even try. Right? You know what you're saying? But like I told you, when someone climbs on top of you and then a few months later starts talking about rape, there's screwball, there's screwball. went screwball on that person's head, right? That Coco, adult friend finders, Shaft Film Bureau, Coastal 2-4 Fund. Ooh, Latino Asian, she's cute. But I'll definitely do an interview where she's a full member. Go, Linda! Right? They want me to send her a fucking flirt for a fucking dollar. Sorry. $3 to view her access for 30 days access. Okay. Bye. No, I ain't got $3. But she's from Toronto. That's not gonna help. Not. Right. Taking in the modern world. Ooh. Down and dirties. She's on Stevie H. Yeah. He's a rabbit. You're a match. She's 42. Brown hair, brown eyes. Nice face. Head down, ass up, that's the way they like to put it. Quote unquote. Not my lyric, not your lyric. Okay, they have some old man having sex with a young girl, grabbing her by the freaking ear. And then they got this other female with her ass in the ear. Ass. Head down. Head down, ass up, that's the way we like to do it. Quote unquote. I don't know the artist is right. But anyway. So she says, so you just teasing with the like or want to follow up on it? Laugh out loud. Talk for the like though. Thanks for the like though. It's nice to know I got bothered from time to time. Laugh my ass off. Want to talk some more? I think we get on. See where she's at. So she's around here, right? Now, so you don't know if this is a scam site either. Or just a real girl, right? See, most of the times, they just put the picture in, right? Yeah. So here's my tagline about me. I'm a divorced veteran of the first Gulf War and looking for normal and oral sex, like kissing, petting, and finger sex with cuddle after sex. And you're into that. I also do massage full body. I also matter about your sensitive areas that's going like this. And buzz my lips and tongue for your most sensitive parts. I blow in your ears to give you a slight chill. Right there, about. I learned that from the good fucking bastard. You taught me something about the finger. I've been too wounds to know that. I used to on detail too, but I Okay, now she's in a private show. I can watch it as part of the lawyer. They, of course, want a credit card back and get 120 free credits, right? I think, yeah, something happened with the computer. So just a $5 purchase one time. Oh. That would make me better than that number again. It's just $5. It's just $5. I'll say, she says, "Hi, Shane. I'm very happy. I kept her 10 right now. See what she does. Hey, Sophia. I can see pictures of the baby going on. Shaking that ass. You got back, baby. Back one and two, back two. I only have 180 credits on the table. Should do for the year. That was the increase, whatever that means. Oh, she's been so good girl. Let's pull on that body. I'm going to tip her another 10. Ooh, she's running that thing. There you go, baby. Let's roll that thing. Level 3. I'll try 25 and see if that does. She's almost passed for a younger Mariah Carey, too. Not saying she is. So I took her like 45 so far. Look at that ass. Speaking of that ass. guess he wants like so much to show you different parts. Like I said. She also has highlight in her hair. She's a brunette. Brown eyes. Ooh, she that is. Come on. This will take a minute to warm up. It takes quicker photos. It's got 3 parts. There it goes. Well, the between the road. Is she Russian? She might be Russian. Right. So I'll tip another 10. Yeah, tip so much per minute. You not speak English and Spanish stuff. I can't know. That's what I mean. You gotta realize if this game, you can do it or not do it, right? But now I got 205 credits. Ooh, this is hot chicken. This is Brittany with black hair, right? Blue eyes. That's your profile. She's from Bucharest. Born July 25th. Gotta be 18 or older. She speaks English, Spanish, and French. So I can get a full bio of her. She wants to make friends. She does have tattoos. She's 99 pounds. From Bucharest. Well, she's 50 credits a minute, right? She's reading anything, right? Well, this is right. This is eatery. So I say high 60 and well, the show is all over. I just gotta stop it, right? Only got 51 credits left, right? And that's why I can't do all that. Right? These people go back shit. So I'll spend $15 on that. That's it. $7 more. You can't even be on there for a minute. You're better to call as a guest. Then you might see something for free. Like I said, no. Thank you, but no thank you. Not made out of